All right, good evening. We have the February 24th, 2025 meeting of the Town of Wellington Finance Committee Advisory Board. We are waiting on one other member, Alex, and have not heard from our Board of Trustees liaison, Trustee Cannon. Give it an extra minute. Well, actually, I guess we can go into this because at this point, we do not have a quorum. So we will not be having a meeting. We will be going into a work session, which means we do not have a call to order. And there is no public present. So we can open up our discussion items. We'll skip over the May 24 Finance Committee meeting minutes, since we do not have quorum to vote on those. We'll
I'm so sorry.
go into utility billing guidelines. You good? Okay. I'm just gonna keep checking the door. All right, so utility billing guidelines. This is an internal use document that was kind of put together by Deputy Director Smith, which I should introduce. Deputy Director of Public Works Utilities, Megan Smith, is joining us tonight. So Megan and I put this together. We have two departments that kind of oversee utilities. Obviously, the operations, the hard working labor part of it is going to be your public works. They do the meter reads, they run the plants, all that. And then the utility billing falls under finance. So we work together to get both of our departments operating on the same page, and making sure we have a clear outline of how we want to operate as a kind of a joint venture. So this is an internal use document, meaning that it is really guidelines meant to help drive our internal procedures. It's not policy. It does not supersede code or any sort of resolution or ordinance. It falls underneath those to make sure we are following the letter of the law and have procedures in place to do that. So I should point out that the code that this does come from is the Wellington Municipal Code, which is chapter 13. There's a link in the packet to that if you're ever that interested. So really at this point, we are promoting our utility billing coordinator to administrative finance clerk, which we're very happy about. She's been with the organization almost a year, has a great has a great AP background, and made it through two rounds of interviews. So we're excited for that. We're going to be hiring another utility billing coordinator. We are in process of those interviews right now. Phone interviews have been completed and we're moving into in-person interviews. We do have a representative from the Public Works distribution and collection team on that interview panel. So again, we really want to bring both of these two sides of the coin together in making that decision. But the utility billing coordinator is that person from finance who really does the communication and works with the distribution and collection team. So as we are going to be onboarding a new individual into that role, we thought it would be great to get some resident input on these utility billing guidelines. Just again, make sure there's some transparency and understanding how we are upholding the code and ordinances. So with that, the version that is in the packet, there have been just some very small changes. This is the packet version. Deputy Director Smith, I'm just gonna you're okay with it, can I call you Megan?
Yes, please. I would
Okay.
prefer that because I'm not sure who Deputy Director Smith is.
There were just some, changes that, like.
Super minor.
Super minor. This first municipal code 13-1-90, I stopped typing after the word after. So, payment is due on the 25th of the month after billing of user charges. This is actually what that comes directly from the code.
That's the language that's pulled
Yeah.
directly from the code. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's simplified a little bit, but it just says we bill at the end of the month, so you're due the 25th of the next month. Cleaned up, there were a couple highlights, those were spots for us to finalize some of the wording, and we got those done, so I think this one says 1 business day. And then she did some spell or word choice correction for me. Assessed instead of accessed. So
That's one of your favorite typos.
because spell check doesn't pick it up.
Doesn't pick it up,
I still
exactly.
spelled it
Like,
right.
that's a word. Just the wrong one.
So, I guess we can start at the top, just, goes through the description, talks about the scope, saying who it does apply to, which is everyone involved in the.
Somebody
I
at the
got
door.
him.
Oh, thank you. So we'll pause there for a second.
Sorry.
Good evening. Have you met Megan before?
I don't think so.
I don't think we've met. I'm Megan Smith. I'm the
Alex.
Deputy Director of Public Works.
Okay.
It's me.
The quick background is that Public Works and Finance kind of cooperate the utility billing. So they run the plants and do the meter
Oh, yeah.
reads.
Okay.
We do the billing side of it, the statements. So we've come up, as we're gonna be onboarding a new person, with some guidelines, just to make sure that all parties involved are on the same page. And we thought, it'd be great to get the input. So we just did a background. We were just jumping into the utility billing guidelines.
Okay.
So if you have questions, comments, concerns at any point, please feel free to bring them up, ask suggestions, if there's any clarification. So, again, municipal code, so this is what's in the actual code, and everything that we've done, the guidelines operate within that. Do want to also point out, this is not intended to be an all-inclusive list, and to refer to the municipal code for additional information. So when we get into the practices, so the meter readings typically take place between the 20th and the 24th of the month. That's a window that allows us to operate. It takes anywhere from 2 to 3 days. If there's snow on the ground, it could take longer, or construction. But that also gives us a window to work around weekends. So we typically have the handheld ready the day before, and then the crew goes out and reads. There are 3 different routes. So we have 3 different types of meters right now. Where one type, you actually have to touch the meter stick to the pit. Another type, I believe it's just to be in the area. And then the most common one, which we're trying to upgrade all of our residents to, is radio frequency. So we can drive by and get a bunch of meter reads at the same time. Those meters also provide a lot more information. So we are working right now on getting that information from those meters, such as continuous consumption alarms. And you may have heard some discussion during the budget season last year about AMI, which is
Automated metering infrastructure.
so that's gonna allow us to get all of our meters onto the structure where we'll be able to have kind of more real-time data, and our goal is to get that real-time information into residents' hands. That the board has directed us to do that. So,
And I can give an update at the end on that status of that too, if you would like.
Now typically when we do these meter reads, we get reports that say, in fact, today is a great example. We got a report back that was missing 300 meters. So we're trying to figure out, make sure it's not on the handheld, and if it is, then we go back to the DNC team and they're gonna go back out and get those reads for us. Surprise. So,
I warned him.
the other part about this is that the utility billing coordinator does manage all the work orders. So if someone calls in and says, I had a very high bill, I don't know what's going on, they'll go ahead and put work orders on the calendar for the DNC team to go out there. So and the DNC team, if they install a meter, we have new construction, they install a meter, they get that information back to utility billing coordinator. So we've put in some timelines in here about 1 business day to make sure that the records, the systems are up to date. Work orders being scheduled for, at least 1 day so that the DNC team, which starts at 6:30, can plan their day to get everything done, because they're not just meter readers. They do a lot within Public Works. The meters is part of their position. So, we get the data back on the reading device that gets uploaded, which is what we were doing today. And then we generate reports. Those reports, could lead to, like I said, work orders. If we have meters that are, not functioning properly, we can get certain alarms we're working on, like continuous consumption. We want to be more proactive, so that if something gets flagged on our end, and we are working with our vendor, our census, who does our meters, and the readers, to get access to more of this information so that we can be proactive as a utility.
As it stands now for those, the report, well, like, keep going.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that review of data from one period to the next is currently a very manual process. So the utility billing clerk is looking to see if this person has historically only used 4,000 gallons. All of a sudden it's 18,000 gallons, and she'll automatically generate a work order for the guys to go back out, review, is there an active leak? Is that a real reading? Was there something askew or whatever? So that there's some confirmation that this, we didn't just miss a digit or whatever. What we're trying to move towards is a much more automated process, that there's some alarms that get generated automatically with the import of the data. And that would still only hold, though, for about the 2/3, almost 3/4.
About almost 3/4.
Almost 3/4 of our meters that are on the smart meters already. And the manual touch reads still won't be able to generate. That'll still be a manual review of 1 month to the next.
Or can't we, in terms of the upgrading the meters, right now, if we do have one of those older meters, the manual ones, that is problematic or has had multiple work orders on it, when we replace those, or when we're pulling them out, we are putting in the new smart reads. So it is smart meters. It is going a little slower than, we want to do a big rollout. I guess maybe this is a great
That's what I
time.
was gonna talk about.
Yeah.
You wanna jump in now? Okay, so just for some context, because it relates so directly to this process, is that we, in the budget for 2025, we did include, and it was a board direction, to really move forward with rolling out the full AMI network. And so that means, replacing that last tranche, if you will, of meters that are still the mechanical meters with the smart meters. But beyond that, it also means creating the radio frequency infrastructure, which means putting a couple towers in place that have full coverage of the town. There'd be one out at the water plant, one of the wastewater facilities, so property that we already own. There's some good elevation differences there that can cover them the whole town. So we've already had that survey done that would create enough coverage. So it also includes the cost then of setting up those towers, implementing the software, and then tying that software in with Cassell, which is very streamlined. Census works with Cassell often. They both actually work together to try and streamline their softwares to match each other's, because there's so many towns that have both of those. And so in that effort, we applied for Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Grant opportunity for water efficiency that would offset by several $100,000. So we are waiting until we have been told that we would be identified or notified of that award, yay or nay, in May of this year. And so we were just talking about it today that if we get to May and we receive word that we were not selected, which we've applied in the past and we're not selected, but we're doing it again because it's a lot of money. I mean, this is probably $1 million to roll this out. If we're not selected, we did budget for that money. The budget in 2025 did not include an offsetting grant award. I mean, we budgeted for it, so
We
it's in
budgeted
the
the
line
full
item, the
amount,
full
yeah.
amount, without assuming any revenue from a grant. So we will move forward with that this summer, if we receive a nay. If we receive a yay, which would be tremendous, because it would be many hundred thousands of dollars of savings, there would be a delay in that because you have to get all of the contracting in place with the feds and stuff first before you can get started, but it would still be able to kick off by the end of 2025. It just wouldn't be kicking off in the summer. So that would look like guys scrambling to replace 1,000 meters, which is a lot. And then getting the networking infrastructure and the software in place. So either way, we're moving this direction for sure. Likely to not be complete though until the end of 2026. But that would provide, we also had some quotes to, per the request of the board, to include quotes for the costs related to having, because our initial conversations on this topic were to provide a lot of access, that the billing team would have access. So there'd be long-term cost savings in the fact that now we don't have 3 guys that are dealing with meter reads not to say that there's not always meter issues that would always have to go out and get double checked. But you wouldn't have guys going out and touching things or driving around town even to collect it. It would all just come in. But where was I going with that? Where was I going with that? It would be a long term.
Access the portal.
Right, the portal, thank you. So we're initially just having that portal to be something that the town utility billing clerk had access with, but the board really wanted there to be that public facing portal also that could be accessed. And so the current quote that we have in the budget did include monies to allow us to have, and it would be maybe cursory at first, but at least for there to be access so people could see their own data usage and see that you could log on and be like, oh, my sprinkler did go off last night. I see the spike, so that will be a huge win for utility billing. But it's not a overnight thing, but we're actively working on it. So that was a good spot to drop that in.
Yeah.
And that will change some utility billing practices in a year or so.
So at this point, I feel like we've been talking a lot. Any questions, comments so far?
I've got a few notes.
Awesome.
Going to the first page, municipal code, we've got the late fee. Do we want to specify what that is in here, or is that left out on purpose?
So the code does not specify the late fee. It says we can assess a fee.
Yeah.
It is specified on the municipal utilities fee schedule. So
Happen to have that open?
if you go to your water and sewer, we have our fee schedule right
So
here.
very easily accessible by whoever's using this document. Okay.
So the delinquent fee, which is our $5 if you're not paid by the 25th. If we generate a shut off notice, which is typically on or before the 15th of the month, it's a $10 fee, and if we actually do have to shut you off for non-payment, it's a $75 fee to turn you back on.
Okay.
I will say that the shut off and the service restoration, those are both manual processes. And that's why there is a cost recovery fee associated.
Sure.
So, and we have 2 different fee schedules. So we have the town one, which has all of our parks and planning and impact fees. This is specific to municipal utilities because they are approved by the board separately.
Very good. Next chunk, and I'm just kind of nitpicking here.
These do.
Water meters at each premise served by the town may be read on a monthly basis. I think maybe we should it be read?
I
Shall
don't
we?
disagree.
But that means changing code.
Let me,
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right, because that is
So-
code.
Yeah.
You make a good point, never mind.
Well, not to say that it won't get wrapped into an update at some
Yeah.
point, but
maybe
Um,
that's 13.1.
Yeah, you're right, that's
130.
code, I don't know if I wanna mess with that.
National towns for 13.1.130.
Yeah,
It says to be read monthly at the top,
Does it?
number one,
Water meters may be read on a monthly.
but it says to be read.
Mhm.
Oh, so there it's mentioning the subcontractors.
If there is, if we use
If
them,
there
which
Or
we don't,
subcontract.
but by, or subcontractors, right? So if we hired it out.
So,
ever.
okay, yeah, okay, I see.
And so so situations where meters wouldn't get read. March of COVID,
Oh, yeah.
that was the thing. Vicious dogs in the yard and we can't access the touchpad, we're not gonna send them in. Broke down vehicles on top of pits that we couldn't access. So we've had, I mean, that sometimes those took like 3 months before we got somebody out there to move it. And in those cases, they're estimated in those cases.
that's gonna be your number 2 and
Or,
3,
or a
inaccessible, or,
a 4-foot snowstorm could also impact that kind of town, like townwide, like COVID did.
Keeps you from going to jail.
Just keeps us from the people, from the residents being, yeah.
well, and I was, I think it was January.
And again, AMI, doesn't matter if there's a vicious dog in your yard.
That-
But when that happens, you use you still bill them, you just use an estimate.
It's
Yes,
SS,
yeah.
Kind of an
yeah,
average,
and then
right?
and then we get
Yeah.
it trued up.
Yeah. The,
Yeah, and it's an average.
so I will say, like, we didn't end up doing estimates, but I think it was the January read, yeah, it would have been last month. It was so cold and we had just got snow. The guys literally were digging out some of the
Nice,
pits.
yeah, and snow.
To get reads.
Those are the manual ones.
Yeah, the
yeah.
ones where you have to physically go touch it.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully in a year's time
Yeah.
ish, that part will be mostly negated. Though there could still be some wackadoo situation where like the wires on the radio got disconnected and they're still under 4 feet of snow, or I mean, it could still get weird,
Yeah.
but
But at some point, like all the new construction has
They all have the new.
they all. have the
all,
new
and they
ones.
have for years.
Okay.
Yeah,
In
Several
all
years.
of the utility billing I've reviewed since I've been here, the last time I saw a mass estimated read of any time was March of 2020.
Okay.
How do you find out if you have one of the new ones?
it says it in like blue.
No, one of the new meters. Is there a way for residents to see if they have one
Yeah,
of the
just
new
know
meters?
Oh, how do you know if you have one of the new meters? Hmm. Yeah, you call us?
Be happy to let you know as soon as we're done.
Yeah.
Your meter pit should have a, like the big metal
Lid.
lid and then a black
Puck.
kind of plastic puck.
Uh-huh.
I think
I think that's it too.
that's the radio transmitter for the meter.
So that's the one they don't have to go check.
Correct.
Just-
But-
okay. I
but
think that's
there's
what-
Some of it,
But there are even a few of the mechanical, because you can put a radio transmitter on a mechanical meter. But it still has to be touched for it, so I don't know if that's,
That might be
Yeah.
something that would be good communication to put out.
it would be,
Especially since it's a huge upgrade for the town,
yeah,
it'd be good for people to know about it.
to know what to look for, like, do you already have a
And this is
smart
coming.
meter, and for those who don't, this is coming.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's good feedback, good
Yeah.
takeaway, thank you.
thank you.
What other questions we got?
Meter related practices, top of page 2, final bullet point there. It says reading issues provided by UPC will be reviewed, or UBC, excuse me, will be reviewed and completed. By UBC to who?
Okay, so this is for the C&D, so reading issues, essentially if there's a meter read issue. So, and this like, wording could probably be cleaned up.
Yeah, phrasing maybe,
And
yeah,
make sense to us in the trenches, but
Right.
if there is a issue with a meter read, the utility billing clerk will provide the distribution and collections team
So that's what I was
So,
thinking.
yeah,
We
so
could- we
reading
could add
issues
that.
provided to the C and D
Yeah.
team will be reviewed and completed, yeah, something like that.
And along those lines, I was thinking it would be good just to say what the DNC team is in parentheses afterwards.
Yeah, or up top somewhere, both UBC and.
I think
'cause
that's,
you
I
probably-
think that's the first time
That-
that
yeah.
That's a good idea.
the DNC shows up.
Yeah.
So
Just that, right?
Cool.
And you laid out what UBC was earlier, so I mean, you could just put it in parentheses
Yeah.
behind or something like
Yeah.
that.
Perfect.
And so those we're talking about, like if they have a issue reading it.
Yeah.
Not if there's like a. Like if all of a sudden it's a super high reading, did you have anything that flags that, right?
So
That's in this.
yeah, I mean, that's really with the utility billing coordinator. This is gonna be if we, yes. To answer your question,
Should be able to see like anomalies or something.
yes, this is gonna be if we have, like, today we got flagged that there were a chunk of zeros.
Okay,
So she's now reviewing that to see why. And if we need to, we're gonna send the team back out and they need to respond within one day. Because that, and if we need them to do anything at the pit, they need to get, data logs. They need to get as much information for us.
so after they respond and say is there a way to get to the resident to let them know they have a leak or something?
Yes,
Okay,
yep. So I'll go into the timeline,
okay, we're just, okay.
but I wanted to.
I have a few.
Yes.
I'm not
He's
done.
not done.
Okay, I was just making sure, because I didn't want to cut you off. You're on a
Yeah,
good roll.
it's okay, all right, I only got a couple more. Second line under utility billing practices, I just read that sentence a bunch of times and I don't know, it's just gotta be
This
something
one?
different. No, down that bullet point there.
Handheld
yeah.
meter?
The handheld meter reader will be prepared for use by the end of the day,
Prior to meter reads.
prior to meter reads,
Prior
okay.
to meter reads.
That is the word that we need,
That-
okay.
Yes. It's amazing what
I was like, I don't
And
think I'm.
handheld meter reader is a person, or that's a thing?
the hand,
It's a device.
it's a device.
Okay.
It's a big wand.
So,
Looks a little bit like a locate, like a
Oh.
piece of locate equipment.
Is that just
If
to
you
make
were
sure
to look
they're
at-
working before they go out there?
Yeah.
It's to make sure that like they can come in first thing AM and it's ready to go
Ready to go.
and they can get out the door. Cause they can get a lot done on a pretty day. They can get a lot done if they hit the ground running
Yeah.
it, when they walk in the door at 7:30.
last one, discontinuance of utility services by town. It says on the 26th each month except December. Utility accounts, blah, 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 blah. Well, which day in December then? Or just not December at all?
We have historically, the last 2 years, we have historically not done shut offs in December
Yeah,
for a variety of reasons.
works for me. Yep,
One, it's the work, one, it's even selfishly for staff and their ability to be here or not be
Sure.
here, right, for that. And then also there's just the knowledge that we're not interested in shutting people off Christmas week. Right before Thanksgiving, like that one gets moved until after
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
actually last year and this year, the shut off of Thanksgiving week is
The day before Thanksgiving,
technically the day before Thanksgiving, or I think it was like Tuesday this year,
Yeah.
last year. We were not
We're
gonna
gonna
do
do
that.
that,
right.
We pushed it to the next week.
for that one, and then for
And
December.
that
it's
also
just a-
allowed,
And this is an
residents-
internal policy,
Yes.
this is not a.
it allows residents
little extra time.
unknowingly a little extra time to get payments in, cause we won't charge. Like, if it's due on the 25th, but the 25th is Thanksgiving. We're not open Thanksgiving or Friday or Saturday or Sunday, so they actually have until Monday to get payments in before there's late fees. We try to err on the side of that customer experience.
And that's the true for any month where the 25th falls on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Right? Or the 26th falls
I-
on a Saturday.
Our system, so Cassell is our billing system is manual. So the billing, the fees, the creating statements, all of that is done manually by the utility billing coordinator.
Is that gonna be automated once the system is automated?
The billing and when he says manual, it's not like we're creating each PDF. But to to process everything, you force the generation of, you're triggering the generation of the statements. So it doesn't just auto generate on a given day, on any given, in a month. So that's more of what
Yeah.
he's
So I
referring
mean,
to.
yes, she's not going in and putting in everyone's dollar amount,
Usage, yeah,
but we are clicking a button that says,
generate
okay,
today,
now we know meter reads are in, we know.
double
everything's-
checked everything.
All that, and we are hitting generate statements.
Okay, one of my notes, sorry.
Oh, I
I'm
think
all
you're
It's
done.
on- You're done?
I'm done, I'm done.
It's on this topic, and partly it's based off of my experience, like with Excel. With them, you can pick the day. You can pick the day that you wanna pay and pick the day. And because it's all automated, the system already knows what your usage is continuously, so there's no need to have set by the town dates. So if you're budgeting because you get paid once a month,
Mhm.
you could set it up so that it's works for your family's
Yeah.
budget, that sort of thing. So whatever the system would allow you to do in the future in that direction, I think would be good to be thinking about, rather than having these kind of set days are really old school manual, everything
Yeah.
manual
Yeah.
and all of that. And as you're spending $1 million on a system to be automated, that would be one of the things to eliminate.
Mhm.
And I think it would be more friendly for the residents.
So the $1 million is for meter infrastructure. There are system enhancements as well. We are looking into some right now, actually, that could help residents with budgeting. I will say Express Bill Pay, which is our portal that allows the online payments. You can set your payment date. So if you want to pay it on the 15th, even though it's not due the 25th, you're able to do that. Long-term enhancements on the system are being explored.
And you're kind of making my point even a little bit more, because it's just the equipment that's $1 million. I think that the portal is like 200,000, if I remember right.
Of the
It was-
million, yeah.
so
I mean,
it's
it's dollars,
There's
but
a lot of money to be automated
Yeah.
there, so.
yeah.
Then kind of almost going back to the point before that was the dates for the holidays. I was thinking that it might be a good idea to add a particular section in here for compassionate considerations, for residents. Like to just put it in writing that you're not billing on those dates, or you're not shutting off on those dates.
Just
Yeah.
calling it out here.
Yeah, and then also think about other times when there might be appropriate compassionate considerations. With somebody losing the job in that month, or somebody in their household dying, or I don't know what that list looks like, but just some other compassionate considerations. Where if somebody were to call you guys up, it'd be like, hey, this is something that happened. Can you give us an extra 2 weeks? Where if they talk to you in person, you might be agreeable to it. You could,
Mhm.
whatever that is, you could call that out, and I think that would be. It would make this more friendly, because otherwise it looks like a punitive kind of document. Like, if you don't pay on this day, we're gonna shut you off. Where that gives kind of a friendlier customer service angle to it. It just sets kind of the culture and the
Yeah.
tone of what you're doing.
I mean, I do have at least one right now. Like I received a medical doctor saying they have to have water. So I'm working with them. So
Yeah.
to call that out, yeah.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah, is there language in here that talks about payment arrangement options?
Um,
I thought there was.
we talk about courtesy adjustments and link adjustments, but we don't talk about payment arrangements.
Because that is technically on, I mean, that's in the UBC's
yep.
purview to. But I think that's even in.
It is,
code.
it is in code.
There's code language that
Yes.
says the utility billing coordinator can coordinate payment arrangements with resident, and yeah, absolutely,
and since this is giving them
Yeah.
guidance,
yeah. Kind of call that out.
Yeah.
Good, yep.
um.
Yeah, so the utility billing coordinator may agree to provide an installment payment plan for delinquent accounts. So.
Yeah.
Call out what they, I mean, this is a way to empower them to.
Yes, yeah.
And create a good member, customer experience.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't wanna overstep in my knowledge or what's expected, but I just wondered, cause I just read the PUC statutes and rules for a different thing I needed to do for my work, and it was really exciting reading hundreds and hundreds of pages in the PUC. But I did stumble across the utility regs that the PUC has, and so I just wondered if you have done a review anytime recently to make sure that nothing has changed, or that your code is in alignment with PUC, and that these policies are also in alignment with the PUC, because there's some pretty stiff.
There is, and we actually don't fall under the PUC purview.
You don't.
We don't, as a municipal utility. We've been down this
Okay.
rabbit hole. Now, they have some really great, so I have done some review, and they have some really great guidelines and suggestions that sort of is a great backbone. We absorbed one of their suggestions around folks that, like, residents who dispute a bill based on believing the meter is inaccurate.
Yeah,
And we absorbed kind of one of their suggestions around, okay, if they, you can pull and test the meter, you'll pay for that so long as the resident agrees to whatever findings come out of that professional testing. We started doing that last year for the first time with that kind of language. So we probably should go in and review it a little more thoroughly. I've only reviewed certain small sections because it's really engaging
yes.
reading. But we don't actually fall under the PUC purview. And I can't recall, I remember going through this with Dan Sapienza, the town attorney, around why that is. And I think it's because we're a municipal utility, we fall under a different set of, we don't have to adhere to the PUC regulations.
Okay, like I said, I didn't,
Yep,
it just struck me as something.
it's a great resource though, because
Yeah,
they have some
there's a
really
lot.
good language
It
and
addresses
ideas.
every
It does
imaginable.
address a ton, yeah. A lot more detail than I
Yeah,
thought it would have. So it could be good for us to actually
Yeah.
review to over a beer would make it far more exciting. But,
It would
oh, I
help.
should not say that.
Are you at risk for, with the current state of the federal government, are you at risk for any of your federal grants not being funded?
Yes,
And,
it's a short answer.
that seems to be, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns right now, but are there any, contingency planning sessions that should be happening to make sure that we can, that whatever those risks are, don't compromise the town's financial status?
So the biggest, but well, there's two, directly related to the water and wastewater utilities that could be at risk. One is the AMI grant that I spoke of, the Bureau of Reclamation. I have high hopes that utility efficiency and that it would still be awarded, if not to us, to somebody, to lots of people, but it may not be. The other one is a congressionally directed spending grant that we received for an upgrade and expansion for our wastewater lift station, the Viewpoint lift station. So that one, we're in the midst of getting a hold of our EPA rep to understand if the dollars are still there or not. That one is not a nearly as, I mean, it's a need, but it's not a must-have tomorrow need. And so there is some time for us to get something else, get additional funding in place to ensure that we can cover that expansion within the next 5-year CIP process. Though the $608,000 grant that we've been awarded sure would be great.
So it doesn't sound like critical infrastructure is at risk of not being available to the town.
No, and the SRF related monies that we had secured for both facilities, I mean, the water plant SRF loan is already fully closed, so that's done and over. And then the wastewater SRF, to our understanding, we've not had any feedback from the Colorado Water and Power Authority, Power and Water Authority,
RPDA.
yeah, whatever, it's a lot of words, that there's any indication that already bonded, because they've already sold the bonds for those loans, for that loan, that there's any risk for that. And then, so it would be the AMI infrastructure, which we've fully budgeted for, but sure would be great to have offset of cash, and then that lift station. Now, completely unrelated, and I can't speak to very much, is the Cleveland Avenue project. You know, we've got almost $4.5 million worth of grant funding. But I don't foresee that kind of very visible, hard infrastructure grants going away, even under the, current administration. Those are typically priority projects.
Those were also, many of them were CDOT.
Yeah, but all the funding is federal.
Yeah,
I mean,
So
all
volume-
of our funding comes through the state, but it all comes from the feds.
yeah.
So-
They need to cut $1 billion, so, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't related to this document, I apologize for that.
No, it's a good question. I've been waiting for somebody to ask.
I have one last really super nitpicky things, more nitpicky than Jason's,
Oh,
but-
All right.
What did I miss about?
No.
What?
I just thought you might want to give consideration to renaming the document, because it's kind of, you started your introduction off with how there's the billing side, and then there's the worker bees doing the actual work side,
Oh, yeah.
and this kind of addresses more than just billing, and it might kind of give.
It's meter reading and utility bill
Municipal utility guidelines.
or
Yeah,
something.
okay.
Or
Yeah.
it's also, it's customer service,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to sound governmenty.
Doesn't have to sound so cold,
Yeah.
Nick.
So I'm not gonna tell you what the name, I
That's-
just,
oh,
something to think about.
I appreciate that. You get so into it that
Uh-huh.
you don't see that outside perspective, so that's literally why brought it to you all. So. Yeah, it is,
It is about customer service.
so, any other questions, comments right now?
I did actually have one.
Yeah.
We've talked before about having like metrics that could be put on the town website, or could be used for kind of helping to show what you guys are doing or why you're doing things, and you listed off a whole bunch of like data points that would be good things for telling your story about why you're investing in some of this stuff, like how many hours do you spend doing meter reads? How many meters a month do you have to replace because they're not accurate? How many meters are leaking? Whatever, just a bunch of things that might help tell the story about why these are important and why we should spend the money to replace those systems. And so the metrics could be some things that are like performance, like town performance things, but some of them could be just really easy numbers that.
Yeah.
That you probably have on a spreadsheet already, just would be put together and presented.
And if we're gonna be talking about sharing information when we roll out AMI, being
Mhm.
able to share
That
the
kind of
why.
story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
That makes a lot of sense.
And that really is the last of my list.
I guess the only other part I just wanted to, I mean, we've kind of jumped around now, this example timeline is not it's never gonna work this simply, because this doesn't even take into consideration weekends.
And there's 10 days in there, so there's a weekend day in
Yeah.
there somewhere.
But really what this was trying to outline was just a visual for our teams to realize like the impact of what they do and where that falls in the dominoes, right? So we have to start meter reads on the 20th. We can't overload the distribution and collection team with work orders if they need to be out there doing meter reads. And then we get that information back, we only have a 4 or 5 day window to get everything put in to generate statements. So we needing the support from the DNC team to help with those work orders at that time. So this was really, it's again, it's an example. It assumes best case scenarios. We don't want to overextend either team to make sure that we can get everything done. One of the features we are hoping to roll out this year, and it is on here now, is the potential leak letter. So that we are able to, I only have one person that does utility billing, they can't call everyone. But if we're able to at least send a letter that says, hey, you've got a leak. Your next, or you might have a leak, your next bill may be a surprise. We recommend you have it looked at now and get in touch with us. Cause we do have leak adjustment guidelines in there. So,
And you mean mail, not email?
so we don't have,
What year is this?
I know,
Oh, man.
it's
Sure.
not,
Once a month, maybe.
Yeah.
it is,
Don't go on vacation.
Yeah.
it is. If we have email, we have to look in two systems. So if we don't have it in the core system, we could go into the billing system and see if they've chosen to set up for e-statements, and if they have, then we would have. But the core system and the billing system don't share contact information.
There's also the stuff that like, I know the C&D team, DNC, whatever you wanna call them, Jesse and his team, they would, their perfect world would be when they're out meter reading even. Of course, this will go away once we're on AMI, but also then there's this generation, this automatic, like,
Mhm.
you know, I envision being able to set people up for automatic leak alerts. A text message even or something.
Yeah,
That'd be super great. But they would love to even have it to where the system alarms them as they're reading and that they have a stack of Post-it notes in their chalk that say, we detected a continuous consumption alarm. You may have had a leak or may still have one, and they can just put it on the door at that time,
Yeah.
you know, while they're out in the field, even more proactive. But again, the dream is to like have it set up to where you'll receive a notification and you're like looking around your house and then your husband says, oh yeah, I left the water hose watering that tree for 2.5 days. That's what happened in my house.
I had a data log, this is one of my favorite stories, and I'd be happy to show it to you. Had a data log pulled on my house because I had an exorbitant, I had 16,000 gallons used, something like that. Turns out I have now learned my toilet with the flapper up runs 184 gallons an hour.
Whoa.
jeez.
I feel like there's something wrong with that toilet, but I did not realize it was down the hall, that bathroom that
Isn't used in the
isn't
regular.
used, and I didn't hear it, and it ran for like 6 days.
Yeah.
And I have the data to see that. And it's not infrastructure, so it's not the town's fault, it's mine. And obviously I paid it, but like if we could get notification to people earlier.
On day 2 instead of day 6.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a sprinkler down below the dirt that was leaking it was during that whole time last year, or the year before, what was raining all the time. I
Oh, yeah,
wasn't using my
2023.
sprinkler, but there was always water on the ground, so I had no idea until everything dried up and it's still wet over there. It was like a month. It was
Yeah.
just leaking
Yeah.
for a month straight.
My Moan flow meter, I get an alert on my phone and an emergent phone call from their call center in 25 minutes.
Oh, wow, yeah,
Of it detecting unusual usage.
yeah.
And you have the option, you could tell it, push the button and it'll turn your water off. Boom. It just turns it off for you right now so that you can
Come home and troubleshoot it later.
figure
Yeah.
it out. Cause if it's your basement flooding, you wanna do that. If it's just your hose running, and may not be as big of a
So
deal.
is that like on your main in
Mhm.
to the house? Huh?
It's like it's just inside
So
your
it's like a
basement.
valve
Yeah.
thing too, cause they can shut it
It's like
off.
actuated valve.
Yeah,
And so if you don't answer your phone, they will shut it off for you,
yeah.
cause
I'll
that's
look into that.
what you're wanting, so. Yeah,
Especially if you travel at all,
Yeah,
that's really brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause that's not something we're gonna have the capability of doing.
no,
it also, it knows usage, like by a toilet versus a sink or a shower,
Yeah.
and so it knows if you're
Something's really out of
flushing a
kilter.
toilet, or if a toilet is dripping, or a faucet, not a toilet, a faucet is dripping, it'll tell you you're wasting 5 gallons a day on the dripping faucet.
Huh.
Yeah, some of the more common ones we've had are the sprinkler head, underground sprinkler head, running toilet, water softener,
Mhm.
installed water softener, and then it's just going directly into the drain, so they don't even see that it's,
Mhm.
right, so you, and a hot water heater on occasion, usually those get picked up though, but you can have a hot water heater with leak and it can go undetected for a while, if it's, depending on where it's leaking, if it's just draining. So.
Yeah, so then the part that we want to be just very clear of is how we do have to, it's in code. We do turn off water if you go essentially, your December, if your December bill is not paid, December 31st bill is not paid by February 25th. Your service is disconnected. It is again, a manual process. The team goes out. I will tell you that our utility billing coordinator tracks payment arrangements. She tracks, anyone that she's talked to that said, I'll do it I'll pay on Friday, I promise. We track all of that because we don't want to turn someone off that is making good faith effort. And so once that list is determined, we do turn off, but we have set up the staff for that day so that if someone comes home and they don't have water, we're able to respond. And we do empower the staff to turn water back on. And then the resident work with the utility billing coordinator on the payment. If they choose not to do that, we could turn them off again. So, but
That was newly implemented this year
yeah,
in January.
So you're saying if they don't pay, you go shut them off, and they call the same day, they're like, hey, I'm gonna be in tomorrow to pay or something, and they could just go back out, turn it on? Is that what you're?
yeah, we can, yeah,
Something like that,
yes.
okay.
It has been historic. The biggest thing is those instances, you know, the town hall, the utility billing clerk shift ends at 5. Lots of people don't realize what has happened until, I mean, understandably, they've received three bills and a shut off notice in the mail though, so it's, but understandably, they don't realize until they've got home and it's 5:35. So we have until January of this year, it has been I don't have the answer when they would call was unfortunately, I don't, and this was not something the staff like to do, but we didn't have protocols in place for it, but it was unfortunately, I don't have means to collect your payment and I don't have means to verify your payment. So they're like, I've already been on express bill pay and I paid it. Well, they are in their field staff. They don't have any access to express bill pay. It was, you're gonna have to wait until, you know, the town hall opens at 7:30 tomorrow morning. Well, we have empowered staff now that if they take those calls, or when they take those calls, not if, they are empowered. The notifications will say we can provide an after hours turn on. You will be responsible for paying the next day. You also run the risk if you don't pay the next day, we'll come back out and shut you off again, and you will incur yet another $75 fee to get turned on. So I mean, it will rack up fast, but we absolutely don't want to leave people off on the overnight if there is any way that we can keep from doing that. So staff is available. I mean, we've had staff get called out. There was a sheriff's deputy that worked crazy hours. And he got home from a shift at like 2:30 in the morning to take a shower and get ready for bed and whatever. And we didn't have the means to come out, and, you know, we will be able to do that now. So.
And then we just go into just some guidelines. Most important about the guidelines is there is gray area for Megan and I to make exceptions. Again, this is not code allows us to charge fees. But this again doesn't mean we have to, and we have the purview and discretion to make adjustments. Work with residents if they provide proof that they've repaired the leak, that this is not an ongoing problem. We can kind of meet in the middle. When you think about the fact that the largest part of our water enterprise expenses is the cost of the water. The water has gone through the system, so the town's gonna pay for it anyways. So we do need to be aware of that, though. We can't just. Unless it's something on the town side, infrastructure, then we will obviously. Refund that. So any other? Oh, I should also say the hardship utility grant. Not listed in here, I could put it under the compassionate considerations.
Yeah.
Has been funded again this year, so there is, with proof of hardship. Application is available online, you can submit your documentation online. Of that hardship, residents could be eligible for up to $300 to assist with utilities. Gets credited right to the utility account. So, any other questions, comments, feedback? All right, well, thank you, that was actually very helpful. I don't know why I said it that way.
was
That
helpful.
was very insightful, and I appreciate that. Only other thing I wanted to call attention to is we did have reports. So we had the report of bills and the treasurer's report in the packet, so I can entertain questions on that if there are any. But I also wanted to, and I clicked on the wrong one. Under finance, we now have, and it has been submitted to the state auditor, our 2022 audit.
Yay.
So, we do expect the remaining funds from the 2023 fiscal year property taxes to be released. Once the state auditor notifies the county. I have sent I've sent 2 rounds of trial balances, after audit adjustments to our auditor for 2024. So that is on track still for the timeline that we discussed last month.
Nice.
And the 22 audit is there. So, the auditor's opinion is the first couple pages, if you're curious to know what they say, but there were, like was shared last week, there are no material findings. So it was a clean audit. Also want to point out that we do post our 2020, our monthly financials. There were some questions on this, so the reason I'm bringing this up is financials that are included in this packet for this meeting and in the packet for tomorrow's board meeting aren't approved by the board until the minutes are approved in the following meeting. So that's why there's a lag on these, is December is being presented to the board tomorrow in the packet. When they approve the minutes on March 11th, then December will be posted here. So also at the March 11th meeting, I will be presenting on the audit. Just the final audit is done, so. Then. Were there any questions on the treasurer's report?
One,
Yes, sir.
just one.
Is only one uncommon?
Sometimes more, but sometimes not.
Just teasing.
Let's see, page 13. the bottom of finance, we've got over short. I think you might have spoke on this before, but if you could refresh my memory, and if that 17 grand year to date, does that wash out in the 13th month, or what are we looking at here?
That's wonderful. Short answer is yes, it does wash out. So it's gonna affect
Yeah.
the fund balance. The fund balance, that's an expense, so the fund balance will go down. Right, yeah. As a result of it, but what I'm curious about is what was that? Oh, huh. Okay, we had some fraudulent transactions through our bank account that they were charged to our account in they hit the December statement. And then First National Bank disputed them and it was refunded in January. So
Perfect.
when we see our January treasurer's report, that number, which is an expense here, will show as a revenue in January. They will offset. So this is gonna hit the end of the year fund balance, but then our end of the year fund balance next year starts off with essentially a credit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, what is that now? Yeah, no, so we did have, I don't know if it's our account number got on the black market or what, the dark web. We do now have safeguards in place like positive pay, ACH review, so all of that in place. We did not lose a penny. Our bank, which is FMBO, did dispute and get everything refunded. So unfortunately, because of the timing, those fraudulent transactions had to hit somewhere. So we hit them there, but the offsetting revenue will also hit there, just in a different fiscal year.
Did you update the finance manual? For the new procedures?
And no. So good.
Any more work we can give you?
Procedures. And so our AP now, when we generate checks, we upload a checklist into positive pay. All ACH transactions are reviewed. Currently, we're reviewing them all and establishing what are like typical, so like Excel, when Excel hits, and what those typical dollar amounts are, and then we can set up guardrails on each side to let us know if if we get a really large water bill,
You know who to contact?
yeah. So thank you for asking that question. Anything else? Any reports from you all? All right, so per the Board of Trustees conversations, and as pursuant to what Trustee Cannon said at our last meeting, we are looking again to the future of what holds for the Finance Committee. Being able to present a completed audit and share some other information with the board. We'll see what their direction is. We do appreciate this connection with the residents. So we'll see how this looks going forward, but as it stands right now, unless if something comes up as I should ask, does spring break impact anyone here? Because our next meeting would be St. Patrick's Day.
No.
Which is PSD spring break.
Right.
So I know there's no board work session that week. For that matter, do we want to meet on St. Patrick's Day?
So if we can kick that back by a week, I'm good with that.
I'll have to double check what we're allowed to do in code, since it's not a, like,
It's not a-
recognized
Yeah,
holiday,
it's a different holiday,
right.
yeah.
we might be able to cancel it if there's no action items, but
I'm okay on that date, the following. Probably be out of town.
okay, I'll keep that in mind, and we'll discuss it, but any other? Well, thank you all for being here, and I will go ahead and end our meeting.